Welcome in to Varsity Vibe. I'm your host, Alyssa Orange. And as always, thank you so much for joining us for another great conversation around high school athletics. And today we head down to Greenwood, got an opportunity to sit down and chat with baseball coach Brandon Brewer, who has been leading this program since 2022 after being a player at Greenwood when he was in high school. Baseball has been a part of his life his entire life. And it's exciting now to be back at a place that gave him so much with the game on and off the field, and an opportunity to now lead the next generation of baseball talent down at Greenwood. I hope you enjoy my conversation with head baseball coach Brandon Brewer. You've been a part of the program for a really long time, the head coach since 2022. When you decided to come back to Greenwood, what was it specifically that drew you to coming home?
Well, I think it's the opportunity to work with people that I know and I grew up with. A lot of the teachers that still teach in the building are some of my teachers. And I know that we have a great community here. The community support is unmatched in Greenwood. So, and then, personally, on the personal side of things, just being closer to my family and having the opportunity to start our own family and then be a part of it. So that was a pretty special moment for me.
Want to go full circle with you. So let's start where it all started. Growing up in Greenwood, being a part of that baseball program, what do you remember the most about what it gave you as a player and as a person?
Well, just growing up in Greenwood, you developed a competitive edge really quick. If you weren't super competitive, you kind of got left behind. So I think that was the main thing for me. It's really hard, especially these days, to play all three sports. And so I shifted my focus more towards basketball and baseball. I've always loved baseball. I knew I wanted to do something with baseball. We had a coach that really, he was kind of like a Bobby Knight of high school, so to speak. He would get in your grill a little bit and challenge you. And so I think doing that and having him as a coach really brought out my competitiveness. So it was good growing up in Greenwood for sure.
Yeah, you bring up something that I think you don't know unless you grew up in it, but it feels like if you lived in Greenwood and you weren't competing at something by the time you were walking, you're not going to be able to keep up as much talent as come out of that city.
Yeah, and it's a small town, but expectations are sky high. So if you want to be an athlete, you in this area, you choose to go to Greenwood. So it was a good experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Nowadays kids face a little bit different pressure, with social media and things that I didn't necessarily have back then. So, but yeah, it was really good growing up here.
What were you like as a baseball player?
I would say I was not as talented as a lot of my teammates. I just played the game hard and played the game the right way. And I think, not being as talented, you kind of had to try to find an edge mentally. You had to learn the game, the inside and out. And so I think that has helped prepare me as a coach, just the intricacies of the game. But yeah, I didn't hit it very far. I didn't throw it very hard. I just played hard.
So what was it about baseball? I mean, you talked about having to decide between specialties and you picked basketball and baseball. What was it about baseball that drew you the most?
Well, I've just always played baseball, and it was just it's always come natural to me in terms of just the love for it. The speed of the game is slow for a lot of people, but to me, it's more about the chess match of baseball. It's really boring to just sit down and watch if you don't really know what's going on in baseball. But my dad had a love for baseball. The earliest moments, that I could start walking and stuff, I probably had a bat in my hand and just going out and playing catch with him and hitting in the yard and stuff. Just developed a love for it, and so I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do full time.
When high school was over, you talk about wanting to do it full time. How did you make sure that baseball remained a part of your life once high school was over?
Well, I had an opportunity to go play college ball. So
Yeah.
obviously, you take that route. And then my mom was an educator, and she was always with the school, a teacher in the schools. And just growing up around sports, I knew I wanted to coach it eventually. So you go through the college part of it, and you play and stuff, and you quickly realize, there's probably not a future for me after college, playing wise, but you can still be around it by coaching. So that's the route I chose. Just so happened, that things worked out where I got a job right away at a good school, and that's history.
You talk about having to really focus on the mental side as a player and how it helped you as a coach. It's almost like it helped you become a teacher of sorts. And you've got teaching in your background with your mom.
Yeah.
What more specifically do you feel like helped you as a player and what you learned that you've now applied as a coach?
Well, it's just the situational side of things in baseball. There's a lot that goes into it, and each pitch has its own life. And so, the situations, I always tell our guys, the situations will dictate what we do. There's so many situations that happen in a baseball game. And so I would just grow up watching the game, watching Major League Baseball at night, watching the Razorbacks, and see how they would handle certain situations. And I tried to apply it in high school. Obviously high school is a little more laid back than college or pros, and you don't get the ins and outs, so to speak. But so when you get into coaching, there's so many different scenarios running through your brain that the average fan, doesn't quite comprehend or doesn't see it from your perspective. And sometimes the kids don't see that perspective as well. But each pitch you're trying to think 4 or 5 or 6 pitches ahead.
Sure.
And sometimes that can be very mentally taxing.
So after college, you get into coaching, as you mentioned, you get a good job. Is that when you went to Owasso? You were at Owasso for 7 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you become you're not a head coach, but you come in and you're an assistant coach. Like, what was that learning curve like, switching from being a player to being a coach, and some of those early lessons you learned?
Well, I compare going to Owasso like Greenwood treats football.
Yeah.
That's how Owasso treats baseball. They eat, sleep, breathe baseball over there. So I thought I knew, what baseball was all about. And then I get into that town and that program, and it was very eye-opening for me. The head coach there has been a head coach for over 40 years. He's in the highest honor that you can get. He was just inducted into the ABCA Hall of Fame, which is the highest achievement you can get in baseball. So I learned so much from him, just about how to run a program, behind the scenes of what it is to be a head coach. He was an unbelievable mentor, and still is to me. He's still coaching over there as the head coach right now. So, I wouldn't be where I'm at today in terms of just having the blueprint to have a program and how to run it successfully, without him and without that experience. They have 10 coaches on staff over there. And so you're just fighting to try to kind of move up the ladder over there in the Tulsa area. So, having so many people in my corner and so many baseball brains to bounce ideas off of over there was a good experience.
Do you think you grew the most just on the philosophy, mental side of the game as a coach when you were there?
Well, yes. And then the other thing I say is I really found out what work ethic is over there.
Yeah.
You think of the hours you put in as an athlete, and, everybody works hard. But over there, the hours of just before practice, after practice, being the first one there to prepare for the day, the meetings that you have, the weight room side of things, the planning, that's where I learned that it's a whole different, beast in terms of being a coach instead of just an athlete. So the athletes get to show up, they practice, they go home. the coaches are there before and after practice. They're planning, they're preparing, they're meeting. So that's where I learned really about what it truly takes to be successful. I mean, they've won 14 state championships over there. I think they have an idea of what they're doing. So that's where I learned that. But being an athlete and then experiencing that was eye-opening. But yeah, a lot of baseball philosophy as well. I do a lot of the same things that they do. So that's where I learned a lot of my philosophy.
To be a part of a program like that with so much history, how much fun was it to coach the players and the caliber of talent that they had over there?
Well, it was easy during games. You got to just sit back and watch them go do their thing. But you have big leaguers coming in and out of practices and during winter and stuff and throwing bullpens to your guys. And it was kind of, I was in awe at first. You've got guys that are pitching on TV and in the big leagues coming in and working with your guys. And it was definitely surreal at times, but then you kind of get in a rhythm, you develop those relationships. And so it was really hard to leave that job. This job was the only job I would have ever left, that job for. So I'm very thankful for my time there. And it was a great experience.
Yeah. With that being said, when it came open in 2022, I mean, how long did it take you to put your name in the hat? And what was it, obviously, that for you coming home, being a Greenwood guy, made it a no-brainer and a good fit?
Well, it had come open before, and I don't know the exact date, but I'd had some phone calls. I just didn't feel like the time was right, that I wasn't ready to be a head coach. I still had, more to learn. And then when it came open the second time, I had got a phone call from some of the people back home and said, you should really think about applying. And so I talked with Coach Turner at Owasso and, just asked him, what he thought about it. And the timing I felt was right. It was kind of like a now or never type situation for me. If you want to go and kind of put your name on it back home, now was the time to go. So it was a very rushed process as well. The job didn't come open till super late. And so I was getting ready we had already played all summer. And so I was getting ready to go back to class. I was getting things ready to go in the classroom and didn't know if I was actually going to get the job or not. So, the interview process, was really late in the game. And I got the job maybe a week or two before school started. And it was kind of just like a blur of trying to get everything moved and sell the house. And so, I can't remember a lot of it because it was just so fast, but it was good times.
What was that phone call like for you? How much did it mean to you when you finally got that acceptance phone call?
Yeah, I mean, it meant a lot to me. When you leave a place and then you have the opportunity to go back as the head coach, I didn't know it would happen so soon. It was always kind of a dream of mine to maybe go back and be the head coach at where I grew up. But yeah, when you get the phone call that it's yours, definitely some celebration and excitement. But I still sometimes I can't believe that I'm doing what I'm doing with all of these teachers and people in the community that I grew up with. So it's a great experience. It's so much fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What's maybe one piece of advice Coach Turner left you with as you departed?
Yeah, just don't sweat the small stuff. He would always tell me that. And I was just like, when you're young and you're kind of a hothead coach and, you want everything to go a certain way, a specific way, he would always just tell me like, hey, don't sweat the small stuff. And I never really knew until I'm sitting in this chair as the head coach, like, you can't let the small stuff bother you. You're always going to have people or things or situations arise. And if you just let that stuff eat at you, then, you're not going to enjoy it. So that's probably been the number one takeaway is just don't sweat the small stuff.
So you go to Greenwood, you step into this role, and now it's your program to mold and create and build and put in a foundation and a culture. What was some of the first things you wanted to accomplish?
Well, I knew we had some great returning players. So
Mhm.
talent wise, we were going to be able to win. I think the main thing was, there was such a stigma around, well, you've got football players over here and you've got baseball players over here, and those two don't really mesh together. Well, I grew up here, and I know that to be successful, you've got to be able to work with all the sports. And so I think the main thing for me was the first day going to the football office and saying, look, here's how I want to do things. Here's how you do things. Let's make that mesh. And we do a great job of sharing athletes. Our guys are working, in all sports all the time. So I think that was the main thing was, hey, let's get everybody on board and let's set the culture that we're going to work hard, but we care about everybody and everything that they do, not just baseball. So I think that was probably my number one thing coming into this job was, hey, let's let them know that we care about them outside of baseball too.
With the influence that you've had and now you're back home, did you have an idea of what kind of head coach you wanted to be, and how much has that grown and or adapted in the last couple of years?
Yeah, you dream of, winning state championships and winning
Yeah.
games, and then you get the job and you start to develop these relationships. And I think the main thing for me is I don't necessarily care that we win a bunch of games. Like, obviously my competitive spirit, I want to win. But the main thing is I want these guys to learn lessons about, how to be a dad, how to be a husband, how to be a father, be great community members, go on and if they want to play college ball, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that happens, make sure
Mhm.
that they graduate, they're getting scholarships. That has kind of started to be my shift in focus a little
Mhm.
bit. And it's funny that I kind of realized that that's how I wanted to be whenever John Calipari started saying, like, I don't care if we, win championships. I'm about the player. I want to get them to the NBA. I want to change families. That's kind of been my mentality this year, especially since, we had our first back in October. My mindset has shifted a little bit in
Mhm.
terms of, how I coach these guys a little bit. I'm probably come off the gas a little bit in terms of my intensity, but I want them to know that I care about them as people and not just what can they do for me baseball wise.
Yeah, and so how do you do that? How do you get them to kind of buy into the whole process and not just what happens on the field?
Well, you coach them hard, during practice and stuff, but I've really taken a step back during games and just say, hey, I just want you guys to go play. I want you guys to be confident in the work that you've put in.
Mhm.
But then outside of baseball, it's, in the lunchroom, just going up and having a conversation with them about their day and putting your arm around them and loving on them. I think
Yeah.
that they know you can coach them a lot harder when they know that, you care about them as a person. And it's really, it's changed the way that we've done things during the season. Um, I thought, early on, maybe we overcoached a little bit. And so I've
Mhm.
taken a big step back after that Van Buren game, and we've been on a roll, pretty good ever since. So I, I like the way that we're doing things. I like how my staff is handling their jobs. And so right now we're in a pretty good situation.
Yeah, and you go back to a player and a guy who really focused on the mental side of it, right? And just working hard every single day. How much do you now, as a coach, again, instill that mentality as well, and
Yeah.
how important
Yeah.
the mental side of the game is?
We definitely work hard. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. We spend a lot of time up here at the facility. Um, our off-season program is 4 days a week at 6 o'clock in the morning. So these guys know the expectations of working hard. But also, I think, and I told you earlier, they face challenges that I didn't necessarily face in high school with social media and the expectations. And um, I think sometimes you've got to take a big step back and look at the bigger picture and say, these are kids at the end of the day. We've got to do what's best for kids. So, um, it was easy growing up, and all you had was baseball, and there wasn't Instagram or Snapchat
Yeah,
or
we didn't
anything.
have social
And
media.
yeah, no. So,
That.
you wanted to hang out with your friends or be social. You went to the baseball field and you
Uh-huh.
practiced and played. So, um, they have to have a life outside of baseball and outside of athletics. And so, I think I realize that. I think I do a good job of trying to balance that. Um, but at the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do to win games. And then, I'm not going to sit up here and make them do a ton of extra stuff that's just kind of fluff and doesn't really equate to getting any better. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of pressure, not that there's pressure from those who came before you, but wearing that Greenwood logo on your chest when you're playing. But there have been really good athletes that have come through the baseball program. And I think most recently, the ones that pop into people's mind are Connor Nolan and Peyton Holt and what they've been able to do. I mean, how much do these guys lean on the fact that they've got an expectation from the teams in the past and the players in the past to continue what they were doing?
well, if you want to be great, which if you go to Greenwood, you want to, so to speak, we say all the time, you want the smoke, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they want that challenge. They want to be coached hard, and that's what I love. Is they and what I love about this team so far this year is they're holding each other accountable. It's not having to come from me all the time. Um, they want to be great. They've seen players like Tyler Wilson, Daniel Stegall, Connor Nolan, Peyton Holt. All those guys also played multiple sports here. And I think that that's important that they see, hey, those guys did it at a high level. I can too. And it's been fun to watch these guys, especially this group, just challenge each other and demand excellence from each other. And so it makes your life a lot easier as a coach.
There's this quote going around that Corey Close said after UCLA won the NCAA tournament in women's basketball, that the talent is the floor, our character is the ceiling. And I think so many coaches resonate with that quote. How much does that really amplify what you guys are doing and the ceiling per se for this team this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great quote. It's how a lot of coaches feel. If you win a lot of games, that's just the cherry on top of what you're trying to do. These guys, we always said at Owasso, when your best players are your best people, that's when you have a chance to win it all. And we have some really good people in our locker room. Our most talented players are just great people. And so I think that's when you have the recipe for success, that you can kind of feel maybe it's a little bit different in the locker room. We have great synergy right now that everything's kind of clicking together. The guys are having fun. They hang out outside of baseball. They're kind of like a brotherhood. So, yeah, it's when you have that character to go along with the talent, it makes life a lot easier.
How much fun do you continue to have every day when you go out on that baseball field?
I wouldn't say this to my boss, but you wouldn't have to pay me to do this job. I love every second of it. I don't know what I would do, honestly, without being around the field and being around the guys. So it's been a blast. I wake up, I look forward to getting to the park every day and seeing what the day has in store for them. And it's been a blessing. So excited to be here, excited to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah, a big part of that too is that you mentioned wanting to come home and start a family. And we talked a little bit before we started this interview. You got a 6-month-old son at the moment, and that gets to be a really fun thing, I'm sure, as you kind of look down the future of what it would look like for him to be able to see what Greenwood baseball is all about and kind of have that legacy too.
Yeah, he sits right beside the dugout for the home games, and I get to hear him squealing and stuff when we're playing bad. So, no, it's been great. And, the thought of, him having some great role models, being at the at the park when he's young and running the bases and hanging around the guys and stuff, it excites me as a dad and as a person for him to get to experience that. So can't wait. It's been a fast 6 months, and I'm sure that it'll continue to go by fast, and we're just trying to embrace every moment.
We'll do that. And then, of course, I don't know, baseball feels like the ultimate family sport, in my opinion. So it's always fun to have the family out there at the ballpark.
Oh, yeah. And something that I did learn at Owasso, too, was, how much Coach Turner's family is involved in that program. They're at everything, and he's got a big family. And just, how important it is to involve everyone's family at the games with what you're doing. So I'm excited to see what that looks like for us. We have a very young staff. I'm the oldest one on staff, and we've got, Coach Barrett has a young child, and you've got Coach Ross, who's, still young, and Peyton Holt, who's still young. So I'm excited to see how this grows, over the course of time, and hopefully we can continue to grow it and, become one big family.
That'll be exciting. And just to see where you take the program is exciting too, Coach. Thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Varsity Vibe. And thank you to Coach Brewer for joining us and sharing his story as well. Like I always do, I encourage you to follow us on social media. That is our Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. So much great content on there for you as baseball, softball, soccer season continues to roll on. And if you missed the episode where we got to spend some time with JJ Andrews at the McDonald's All-American game, make sure to check out that content as well, or any of the conversations that we've had with coaches and athletes the last couple of months over on our YouTube page or wherever you get your podcasts. And last but certainly not least, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. By the way, there's been a mascot bracket that's been really fun to be a part of this basketball season. So that's been fun. That's a part of our newsletter. So if you missed anything, go sign up at varsityvibearkansas.com. That newsletter will come to your inbox twice a week, so you don't miss anything happening in high school athletics around the state. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Alyssa Orange, and I will see you next time.